Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles Podcast, brought to you by Tacticam. Tacticam is by far the easiest way to begin filming your hunts. Whether it's the 4K 5.0 or the budget-friendly solo, Tacticam has something for everyone. Check them out at tacticam.com. This year we're also working with Spartan Forge. Spartan Forge is machine learning for the deer woods. Basically, Spartan Forge takes collared deer studies, insurance car deer accident information, social media geolocations, and it couples that with weather, moon phase, and rut activity to tell you when or when not to be in the woods. This currently has an online interface at spartanforge.ai, but the app is currently being built and set to launch late summer. Once the app goes live, you can expect there to be a price increase, but if you use code BOWHUNTER, you can save 25%, and that will stick with you as long as you use the Spartan Forge services. So head on over to spartanforge.ai and get your free 14-day trial. All right, everybody, we are back with another episode, and this intro is going to be relatively quick. I am on vacation, so I'm recording this from my camper. Going to get it published up tonight, but just want to give a quick shout out to our latest Patreon, Sam Sheldon. Sam hung out with us up at Boyne a little bit. He shot for the Iron Rhino, and he ended up winning that and won the Kafaru pack up there. That didn't have anything to do with us, but just congrats, Sam, on that, and that's who won the Michigan Kafaru shoot. But if you want to check out any of the Patreon stuff, you can go to patreon.com/Bowhunter Chronicles Podcast, or just click the link on our website. We've got the link in the Instagram, but basically that's just crowdfunding for us as creators, and we get to give away some great stuff. I've just finished a spreadsheet for the Bowtech bow giveaway. We talk about that in this podcast. Didn't really get time up there to do it. I had to build a spreadsheet, and there's like almost 1,000 entries, extra entries to those Patreons, but we do also quarterly giveaways. So this actually just next month we're going to be giving away that hunting bee stand and in-fault stand, as well as some Tacticam fish eyes, packages from Base Map and Spartan Forge, Zinger fletchings. We talk a little bit about those, but we do some great giveaways, but it actually helps us to do events like this and to go to the Total Archery Challenge, kind of offset some of that cost. And all the equipment, what I'm editing this on, that's all from Patreon, so it helps out directly with the show. But check that out. But either way, just tell somebody else about the show if you like it. If you like what we're doing, just tell somebody else about it. And as always, guys, thanks for listening. Hey everybody, Adam, John, and Frank back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles Podcast. Going to break down our trip to Boyne Mountain for the Total Archery Challenge. Now, was this our fourth year doing it? We missed last year, but
yeah.
Okay. And then, did they start it? The first year we went up there, was that the first year they had it there?
I think so.
I think it was.
I just remember seeing it like on social media, or I got an email or something, and I was like, hey John, you want to do this? And then I was like, oh yeah. And then I couldn't even really go, and I just went up there for the one day.
Yeah, it was me and Frank, my brother. That's when we had the
well, first of all, don't give away our condo.
No, that was when we had the house up in the village.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
because that's where I rebuilt the bow in the bedroom, and wasn't it?
No, you did that downstairs.
No, he did. Because when I showed up there, I walked into their condo and it was like
Dan was fletching arrows.
They were fletching arrows.
Oh,
I rebuilt my bow.
Your bow, yeah.
Yeah. I tuned Amber's bow the last time, which was 2 years ago.
Right.
In the condo.
Yeah.
And had her paper tuning in the room.
Right.
Chris was calling me right now.
Oh, Ferd?
Yeah. I was trying to get Chris on this podcast. I was going to tell him that he was missing out. So this year it was me, John, Frank, Ernie, and then Chris again. And then we ended up shooting with one of our Patreons, TJ, on Friday. And then
on the motherfucking Nock On course.
yeah, I want to get to that here in just a second. But
thanks a lot, Dudley.
Yeah. You wait till I see him again.
So Frank, from your perspective, like, how have you seen the event like kind of evolve? Because for John and I, and I guess you too, you've been to ATA and you've seen like a lot of these guys and a lot of these companies and a lot of the stuff. But this year I felt like there was a completely different vibe. And I don't know if it's because we had more people that we knew there that had booths or what.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought there was, there seemed to be more people there total, I thought, a lot of people shooting,
Yeah, like the practice lines were packed.
Yeah. But other than that, I don't know. I think it's a neat event,
I think it's kind of gone in waves. Like there's some of the guys weren't there this year that were normally there. We missed Pat and Amber.
Right.
Tom and
Sarah.
Yeah.
Like our cookout seemed pretty laid back. I mean, I know people came and went, but it wasn't nothing like it was the first year we had it.
Yeah.
But we did get to, seems like every year we get to meet some new guys, and like the guys that had our old room, super cool.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are cool.
Like Mount Pleasant area.
Yeah.
So Mount Pleasant, your UPS drivers are pretty stand-up guys.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
100%.
And then the hard part for me this year was that they keep changing up the names of the courses. So the prime course was the prime course, but then all the other courses were like whatever.
So Yeti is the old Mountain Ops, and then Leupold was the old Locals.
Yeah.
Because I actually found my scorecard. Well, I had my old scorecard. I found it when we were up there. I was going through my duffel bag. I was like, oh, shit. So when I got home, I actually scored the two because I didn't even finish scoring my card from 2 years ago. And I did beat my scores throughout this year from 2 years ago. But that was when I wanted to ground tune the RX1.
Yeah. So I guess talk about your perspective from this year, John, because you said you were the least prepared of any time going up there.
Yeah. So this year was coming up to it, I've been busy as heck. We just got new bows. And literally I built a set. It sounds like what happened for my elk season last year, really. But I was building arrows just up until the last minute. But I hadn't changed my arrow setup. I needed to build some more. But technically I could have went up there with 3 arrows.
Yeah, because messed up one.
I messed up one on the lion, hit it in the main, and it has re-rod all through it. So
that was a 90-yard shot or something.
I think it was 105.
Okay.
And then I swapped that limb on the 5th shot.
On prime?
On prime, because it went literally right through the freaking kill zone. But like I said, I'm not laying up. I'm not just shooting for foam. I'm either going to shoot for the vitals and kill it, or I'm going to hit a limb and screw up an arrow. So I did miss the very first target, though, on the last day. Technically, I blew that shot.
Which one was that now?
The very first shot at that raccoon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I missed that one. But I used the arrow that I hit the limb with. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow. So technically that was a clean miss. I had the one clean miss for the weekend. Otherwise I swapped that, but that was going right to the kill zone. So, and then I smacked the very last target. I grazed the tree, but I still got an 8 on that one.
Right. What about you, Frank?
So where did that end up? Fine. On the last one.
So hold on. I want you to go through your weekend, but the last shot on the last target was my wife and I were walking the dogs today, and I was telling her like about that scene. So before we get to that last shot, like the walk off, so like first day we shot the Nock On course, and that was new for us this year. Did they have Nock On last year?
Yes,
they did.
They did.
Well, that course,
Well, this is the thing. They didn't tell you needed a small mule and a Sherpa to shoot this,
Or
did they?
pack llamas.
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
well, my thoughts are like, could you imagine like out in Montana or like when you were in like real mountains, like we're on like a grassy, like dirt, going through some little valleys and stuff, but it's not a real mountain. It's just like a ski resort. Like if you were out like where there was real rock or, like some of like, I think it's the one in Utah where it like looks like you're just like in the freaking Grand Canyon.
Yeah, Utah's gnarly rocks. Like you miss a target, there's no getting your arrow.
But it would be like if you had to do that same Nock On course with like, so
You'd just be dead.
granted we did a bunch of running around and other things, but like on my watch, it was like, I don't know, 15,000 steps and 91 flights on my Garmin Phoenix watch. The second day on Saturday, we shot 2 courses and it was like the same amount of steps and only 81 flights for 2 courses. So that tells you like the Nock On. And I don't feel like there wasn't any real dick move shots. They were just long and small targets.
Long shots.
Long shot, small targets. There wasn't any like on Prime where they do the dick move with a stick right through the middle of the vitals. Well, if that's the case, you're not taking the shot. I mean, come on.
Right.
Matter of fact, like my brother and those guys didn't even shoot the final shot that first day on Prime because that one was ridiculous.
Oh, that one ate my arrow. Like it just exploded it.
And so on that one, I actually used the arrow that I had kind of messed up in the line. I knew it had it was safe to shoot.
Well,
but
you take all those courses over, there's certain targets on every one of them that are questionable, and that's where you find all the arrows either stuck in the trees, broke off, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? There'll be certain targets on every one of those courses, but I feel they should make them fair. That's all. I mean, just make them fair.
Well, in all fairness, you don't have to shoot. It's not a competition. It's a fun shoot.
Right.
So it's fun to like try to weave something through. Like, I mean, there's some of those where you're bouncing them off tree.
Well, anyway, Frank, for like I say, the Nock On course was new for us this year, and that was what we did the first day.
Right.
And then and you bailed on like the last
20, number 20,
the last 5 targets because it was just like on the side of the face of like a Michigan black diamond, and it was like just in the baking sun, like walk up a 15, 20 degree grade, 100 yards or so, walk back down, shoot up, walk back down.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't in a line either. So you like
sawtooth,
you zigzagged, or John would say, you ZZ topped your way up and then you ZZ topped your way down. And Frank just said, I'm out, boys.
Well, I saw the asphalt trails, that went down to the village, and I just, that was good enough for me. And where was I when you guys came back?
I don't know.
Sitting at camp drinking a beer.
That's right.
He's like, I got a bush light calling my name.
He heard the
oh yeah, it was the bush.
Didn't you take a little break when you got down to the shade?
Down at the bottom of the hill, there's a pool down there, and stuff. And these trees were right on the corner of the trail in a nice big shady area. And I just took everything off and threw it down. And my bow was laying there. My pack was laying there. I was laying there, I just laid right down in the grass for probably 10 minutes.
Like, do you need any assistance, sir?
But that kind of like messed you up, right?
What's that?
That first course?
Oh, yeah. That one really got me. Yeah. And then, well, because I didn't shoot the next morning, you guys went out and shot. And then you guys came back, then we went out and shot in the afternoon. So, no, it was hard on me, that first one.
So to me, it was kind of a mix of the Sitka. We didn't get to shoot Sitka this year, but the last time we shot it, it had some of that same stuff. Like you run up, retrieve, which you did all that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of longer shots.
Yeah, and some of the guys told us that the Sitka course was really good this year. And we, in all fairness, we tried to shoot the Sitka course and not the locals.
We missed the bus.
But the TAC kind of screwed us on that one. So.
Yeah, we were, 4 minutes late?
No, we were 4 minutes early.
Oh, yeah, 4 minutes early.
The last shuttle left at 4, and it was 3:56.
And they took off.
And they were gone.
They were full.
They said they were full. But they also said that the driver of the bus was a dick. And, like...
Way to go, dick.
That's why. But yeah, so that Saturday afternoon, we shot the locals course. I feel like he shot decent on that one. That one's fun because it's like the vitals are like hidden like a little bit or tucked right up against trees. But I don't feel like it's like, I feel like the prime is just the one where they're like, it's a big middle finger to you.
Yeah.
But then the next day, we shot the Yeti, which is the old mountain ops course. And like once we got out there, we were remembering what they were. But that one was hard enough for me. Like, what's your take on that course, Frank?
Well, in the first place, like John said he wasn't prepared. Well, I threw that sight on, you know what I mean, and that tape, and the tape was actually longer than the sight, and then I could crank the sight down, and the indicator would be, a half inch over the end of the tape on the sight. So I was kind of like going by the seat of my pants a little bit. Too,
so, and that wasn't even the worst one. You at least had a day on that one, right?
Yeah.
Chris, when I showed up to drop the stuff off at the trailer before we were leaving, like 2 hours before, they're sighting in Chris's bow.
And this is 1 o'clock. I got out of work at 4.
Right.
And then we left at 5.
Yeah.
So, and
he had what, 5 arrows?
I had one in my case still. So I think he started with 6 arrows.
Yeah.
And
thanks to whoever left him.
You want to know what's funny? I have to ask him. I saw some, I was following along on social media with all the pictures from the Total Archery Challenge, right? And I saw Genesis 3D printing. Austin Cantola was there, and he had his bow, and he had his like backpack on, and there was like these 1 arrows that looked like they were cut down, like, and they might have been like his hunting arrows, and then he had these like really long, what looked like full length yellow Black Eagle,
really
Outlaws. And Chris may or may not have found a Black Eagle Outlaw that was fluorescent yellow crested, and he was getting kind of low, and he wanted to make sure that when he gave it back to whoever the real owner was, that it still flew just fine. So he had to take it for a test run, and that one happened to fly for the tape that they settled on.
Much better
than all the mishmash of arrows.
the mixed bag of arrows.
Because he had 2 arrows that he found that he was going to give back, but he walked right by the lost and found thing with them and be like, oh, look at those arrows.
I think they were out of sight, out of mind because they were in his backpack. So he was like, shoot.
But he had some of Frank's arrows, and he's shooting that old diamond of mine with my hunting arrows that are a solid 4 inches too long for him.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I think the problem on that course there is everything is in a deep, dark hole. So you could see it through binoculars, and they had like little ribbons on them and stuff. But like I'd get drawn back and look through my peep, and I was like, okay, well, I know through my binoculars that the target was like a little bit over those green leaves and to the right of that tree. So I'm just like kind of going back and forth, and then I'd let it go. I'd hear it hit the foam, and they're like, "Oh!" And I'm like, "Hey, I like literally could not see it." So how are you doing with those, as far as like the seeing of the?
Wasn't bad,
Now, does your sight have is it magnified? Is it a lens?
It's clear lens.
It's just a clear lens, which I would say it's not really that clear either.
No, it isn't.
No, because he's got it like
dirty.
it's dirty, and then he's got it like.
Did you use like fingernail polish
Or
on
is
it
it
or
like
Sharpie?
masking tape?
I changed that. I got rid of that.
It wasn't on there.
The outside of it
Yeah, the outside
was plastic, a disc
Yeah,
that I used like a Sharpie on it.
yeah.
To color it. Yeah.
So instead of being like a
Full disc.
1.5-inch circle that's clear with a dot in the middle, he took like a 1.5-inch piece of plastic, colored it in with a Sharpie, and then cut a 1-inch circle out of the center of it. And so
It's called refining it.
so
It's called something.
it's very interesting setup, to say the least.
And not to mention, so with your bow setup, the way everything's set up, to try to maximize your distance, we took off from the low end. So your lowest pin, your setting was 35 or 37.
37.
So on that local course,
He was screwed. He's aiming in the dirt. Like, okay, yeah, aim low, like 6 inches below the target.
but on the so that course, the last day, I don't know. Oh, there was like a bunch of big groups ahead of us or something.
Yeah.
So it got backed up. So we were right up watching the guys in front of us shoot, and then watch them pull their arrows, and then that gave the guys behind us time. And so they were right there like the whole time watching us. And it was kind of cool because we had Andy May right in front of us,
Yeah.
getting to see him shoot, and talking to him enough through the Vitals Live and on the podcast, and last year in Novi, and this year at the Tethrd tent and stuff. It was cool to watch him shoot. Like Alex was asking me, like, what's it like watching him shoot? And it's a lot like John, except for he's like super meticulous and like took his quiver off his bow, took his backpack off, and then went into like the 100% shot process, just like John does. Like,
But I don't take my pack off.
no. But when I shoot my bow, like I draw back, I get on there and I shoot. I don't. There's no waiting.
No,
Like
sometimes like
No waiting.
pulls up.
Yeah. Hey, did you shoot?
Did you like go through your process? Yep.
Yeah. Well, but to be honest with you, sometimes I said no.
Did you like just punch that trigger?
Yep.
Yeah, totally punched that one. Nope, didn't. Well, and I want to get to that in a minute. But anyways, so on that, it was cool, and everybody, it's fun because you get to meet new people and you talk, and then by the end of the time, they're like ribbing you. And these guys are watching Frank maybe struggle a little bit, Where'd that one go? Oh, over. Oh, son of a bitch. Like,
Or you can just hear him.
don't have to look for that one. But the last shot, it was like what? It was like 53 yards. It was right around 50.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that like hit. It was between two trees because you hit the trees.
Yeah.
Ernie hit the trees. I think Chris got it.
Chris
hit
opened
the
it like
foam.
he was like almost a 12.
Yeah. And then I hit it without any issue. And then Frank, Frank does a lot of the chainsaw. He does a lot of he's a little bit of the yips here. And he just got up there and pulled through, hits the foam, no trees or anything. And it was like a walk-off home run. He's like, it's in the foam! It's in the foam!
And the guys behind us were all cheering.
Dying. So that was really cool. I mean, that was...
Yeah, it was the way to shoot the last one.
That was really fun. But yeah, for me, so I just had my regular hunting arrows, and they're the Black Eagle Spartans with 120 grain insert and 125 grain field tips. And I had some that were my hunting arrows were 4-fletch with a wrap. And I had ordered some more of those and some more inserts. And I had Frank cut them down at the club for me just, I don't know, last week or something.
Yeah.
Whenever you guys were up there. And then I put those Zinger fletchings on there because I wanted to shoot them at the Total Archery Challenge just to see how far they flew or how well they flew. And they were shooting really well. I mean, they're a little bit loud. But one of the things I thought about, too, is remember the guys in front of us, the one guy shooting the blue and white blazer vanes? That was loud, too.
The blazers are way loud.
Yeah. So I would say they're maybe comparable to that, maybe a little bit louder. I feel like you can hear them all the way down the range.
Yeah, but I have to admit, I mean, I like to build my own arrows and do all that. When we were loading up the trailer, and I was like, and these ones are different. Like the original Zingers that we got had like the just straight cut.
Yeah, they were like squared off like a.
They look like a rocket. Fins. And
they were really stiff,
super
plastic,
stiff.
like sharp almost.
Yeah. And so when I seen the new ones, I was like, they're kind of rounded and
they're like 1 or 3 degree offset, the ones I have.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, this guy ain't shooting with us. Who is this clown? And I tell you what, you shot really well all weekend. I mean, you had some, a few punches, but compared to our last
years past,
yeah. But even all the long distance shots, those flew great.
What you were trying to say is he didn't have any real zingers.
No.
Now, one of the things, and this is a good question for you because I was thinking about it, and so I wanted to use them there because I felt like it was a good test of shooting them, and I did have one on the practice range, and I don't know, it was like the first day, and I don't know if I indexed my fletchings, so I might have had some contact with the string because I watched it, fly poorly. That was the only shot that I really noticed that on, but I don't have anything else to compare it to because I only shot those on those arrows, and my other arrows that I've got them on are basically a similar build. So having that much weight up front,
right?
How would that? So
you have so much FOC that the front's doing most of the steering.
Yeah. So I
get what you're saying.
But when you talk about those fletches now, you shot those with field points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about a broadhead? Or what about? Are they designed for that, or is that they just designed to shoot?
No,
they're designed for hunting.
They're designed for hunting.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, Garrett Prawl did a video shooting multiple different broadheads, like out to 60 yards, with the old ones, and he was because they make like a 1, 3, and then like a 6 degree helical,
really,
and then they make them left and right and whatever. And these were with the old ones. But he was like looking at them from a noise and a flight. And I think it was like the 3 degree. And I think he was using left because he's left-handed. But whatever, those ones I think were the most stable. And he's really analytical.
He's an engineer. So
yeah, so it was
that's all you have to say.
Yeah.
So but they weren't that far off of a regular fletching, and I mean the profile of them, isn't that different than like a blazer or like a really small. I mean,
you can almost compare it to those fobs that those guys.
Yeah, yep. But I know literally nothing about those.
I've seen them shot. I never shot them or did anything with them, but we're getting off subject.
But like I say, to my point is, I shot those this weekend specifically on those arrows just to see how they flew, and they flew. I was impressed with them. I wasn't like,
you're taking 100-yard shots with them,
Yeah, and to that point, like the 100-yard shots and like the way that I was shooting was, I'm not like ignorant to the point like where when I shoot like about that shot process stuff, like every time I would go into it and say, all right, I'm going to make a good shot, or I'm not going to care where this arrow goes or whatever. And so I would get drawn back, doing the Joel Turner thing, doing the Dudley thing, doing like the complete shot process. And I felt like I was a lot more like the way that John shot, or like the way that I perceived John to shoot, in the sense of like, even when we were watching like Andy shoot, like, so I'd get drawn back, and instead of like being like, okay, this is where I got to be, like, I'd be like, okay, well, my feet feel funny, so I let down on a couple of them. I'd move around and I'd get comfortable and I'd get my elbow up, and then I'd get in. And then once I found the target, like where I would need it to be, then I'd put my thumb on the trigger. Sometimes I would hit the trigger at the same time. Other times I would be like, all right, pull. But I usually get to like poo, and then there it goes. But, but honestly, there was a lot of times, like, I think on one of the arrows that I lost, two of the arrows that I lost, I lost 3 arrows, smashed one on the prime and broke one on the practice range in the buffalo. Hit the buffalo in the spine, and Frank saw it, and it was like 90 yards or 85 yards or something. Frank's like, yeah, something went flying off that arrow, and it was my Nock, and it just mushroomed the whole front of it.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's like with that lion. Just a public service announcement. Don't shoot the fucking lion if you don't have to. Like the practice range, those guys were just wrecking arrows left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that's the one I smashed an arrow on, and I wasn't far off from the insert.
Yeah, you were just to the right of the insert.
Yeah.
But I did the same thing the year I shot that, like Audette or whatever, in the eye. I shot the lion and broke one on that one too.
Audette in the eye.
But yeah, when I was making good shots and I was like, I don't care where the pin is, I just completely missed, but I made like a good, I was completely oblivious to where the...
Now, did you go over? You went over
on all of them.
All of them.
All of them.
So the one thing I've noticed, like when I shoot my Nock to it or my Wise Choice or whatever, so that's the thumb release. When I'm shooting it true with the pull, my arrows do fly higher than what I'm using because I'm pulling harder through the shot. And I think that, this is my personal thought, is that when I'm doing that, I'm getting more out of the bow than when I'm just sitting in almost in a relaxed position.
Yeah.
When I pull, it's always been like that. When I pull through and I'm pulling hard, and then when that shot goes off, it's normally high.
Because that's the same thing that happened with the silverback that I shot on that one.
Right.
Out my left and right was perfect, and I shot him right above the insert.
Right, because that's going to break at a certain point, and you got to pull through it, unless you let down to the point where it.
And then it lands 15 feet in front of the target. But
right.
Ask me how I know that too.
But I so that's one thing. Like when I'm just shooting my Nock to it, it's almost like I have to give it a couple clicks down, and then, but I pretty much just shoot my hinge now.
But yeah. So let's talk about that. So we shot the Nock On course the first day. And we got to, was it shot 3 or 4?
Shot 3 was 120.
Yeah, well, we come around the corner, and we were shooting at a pretty good pace. Like for the first 2, we weren't really waiting. We were like right on the guys. Everything kind of went like right as it was supposed to. And then we walk around the corner, and there's this big old, traffic jam, right? And John's like, who's this clown? And
it was actually farther because it was on the elk.
Yeah, it was like the fourth target, I think.
Fourth or fifth. Yeah, I'm like, who's this clown? It was Dudley standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we walk up and he's like, what the hell happened to you? Well, I was a sweating. What do you call me?
Sweaty McFits.
But so I had asked him about my release and stuff because I had my Too Smooth. I dropped it. And then he's like, yeah, I don't think you dropped it. I'm like, no, I did. He thought I'd like tried to adjust it without loosening the set screws. But I promise you, I didn't. Adam was actually there when it happened. I dropped it because I shot it originally with no click. And I dropped it. And I think actually what happened was I was afraid of over-tightening the set screws, so I didn't tighten them enough. So it gave it enough, like, it gave it clearance to actually let that, the head angle move. So when it hit, it must have landed on that, and it freaking stripped out one side of the set screw on that moon. And so all of a sudden I had a click. I'm like, and the click scared the shit out of me at first. Like, even now I still get a little jump once in a while when and I think because of that was like before I went up there, and a few days before we left, I told you, I'm like, I took it all apart and I tried getting it reset because there was times where it would have a click and it wouldn't have a click. And so when I'm shooting, I'm always guessing, like, did it already click when I first pulled it back? Because it was set that tight.
Well, and there was times that, I don't know if it was after you guys adjusted it or what, where you like drew back and you're like, I don't know if it clicked like when I drew it back, so you like let down.
Right, because that's what would happen before, and it was like, And so yeah, so once he, so
real quick, just for anybody that's like, what the hell is all this click business?
Okay, so on a Hinge Release, I'm shooting a Hinge Release. It's made by Carter for John Dudley, Nock On. It's called the Too Smooth. So a Hinge Release, everyone should know what a Hinge Release is, but it's just what it sounds like. You pivot, you hinge, it hinges, and the hook releases, and that's how. Instead of pulling a trigger or thumb trigger or actual back tension like with the silverback where it breaks at a certain pound, this you rotate into it. So you can have it with a click or without a click. So when you have it with a click, as you rotate it, all of a sudden you get this, and now, okay, I'm ready to go. And then it's just a matter of rotate, rotate, rotate. Well, so it's kind of like a little of a warning. Some guys shoot it without the click, and it's just like they're so used to it, they just know, okay, I'm in safe zone. I'm just going to start rotating. It's going to go off. And that's how I used to shoot. That's how I shot it 2 years ago when we were up there. But that's when all of a sudden there was times where I'm rotate. It's not going. What? Where the hell? But so, I mean, I love that release, but it's almost like it's got too much adjustment to play with. I think it's, I should just get something that's more simple where it's just a click and go.
The Whalen hooker that has no moving parts at all.
Nothing. No click or nothing on that one.
It's just a solid piece of metal that has a hook. Yeah.
So, when you start shooting it, the more you shoot it, you at that point, like your hand position. Okay, I know where it's going to go off pretty much. So I brought it back. So Dudley looked at it. He's like, well, bring it back to the booth and I'll try to adjust it. So we get it back to the booth, and that's when he's like, hey, Sweaty McFits, how many wardrobe changes do you have today? I'm like, just the one. I did change. I'm on my fourth hat, but so he took it apart, or didn't take it apart, but he just loosened up and started adjusting it. And I'm sitting there, and of course Chris is over my shoulder, and Dudley's loosening up and messing with it. I'm like, well, all right, well, be careful. It's that one right there. And he stops and looks up at me like, and Chris is like, yeah, because you never worked on these before, right, Dudley? I'm like, well, not this one. Because on mine, if you loosen up both the set screws, the whole thing, the actual, like, if you let the hook come over the head with the magnet in it, it pulls the moon all the way up. I mean, so I don't know. I do have to send it out to Carter or just call. I tried calling them, but they didn't return my. I guess the best way to do it is to
email them, see what the one guy was saying.
So if I could just get a couple of those little set screws, I should just get a whole kit because I am missing an E-clip too.
Mm-hmm. But then after he adjusted it, you were like, I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, so after he adjusted it, it was like click and then just barely rotate and boom, it'd go off because he's like, pulls out the shot trainer and I was like, wow, it's hot now. And he's like, no. So the way I shoot my hinge is I, 2 fingers, have it forward, draw back. I rotate my hand into the click and then I finish rotating. And he said, rotate your hand to the click. And at that point, start relaxing your index finger. And then it'll go off because that's how it finishes. And what we do, like 3 shots at the practice range that morning. And
I might have been hungover.
Yeah, it might have. But so it worked. That worked great. But I'm like, I'm so used to. So then I'm like trying to do that on the course. I'm like, well, that's a whole nother process. Like I'm used to saying rotate, rotate, rotate. Excuse me.
Instead of relax.
And sometimes relax and rotate. And then all kinds of other shit's going on. But
that just made me think about it. So what that was like to say Dudley was completely present and like there for anybody who walked up there. And
even so, like while he was working, I'm like, hey, I said, because there's other people coming up and wanting to get autographs, and I wasn't taking his time up for autographs. So he's, I've talked to him before, and yeah, that's cool. I should have had him sign the bow and stuff for me, but I didn't want to hog all the time. And he's like, no, this is why I'm here for. Well, this is what I'm here for. So I'm gonna, do what I said. I'm gonna work on that. And then he actually took my bow and looked at that because I brought the NTN up or NTN. I brought that up there.
And
I did
he
not
told him he was going to give it back to him.
I'm like, I said, I've had some issues. I'm going to give it back to you. He's like, well, I'll take it. But I did not give it back.
But yeah, it was cool. But that just made me think about so I was going to ask Frank what he thought about it. You done? What you doing there?
just a little problem.
So Frank walks up and tells Dudley, he just kind of barrels through there and tells him what happened to him on Friday night.
Oh, about the sprinkler?
So what happened on Friday night to you, Frank?
So we were going to do the pork butts on my smoker, pellet smoker. So we get everything ready. And and we had to run a cord out of their room down to the pellet smoker. And
so we're on the second floor.
Right.
There's no outlets on the back of this condo anywhere outside. So we have to run an extension cord out of the bedroom, out the door, over the balcony, and down to the smoker.
And we're out there partying. There was, I don't know, 15, 20 people out there Friday night.
Yeah. But we wanted to get the pork butts on or before midnight.
Right.
That way we could get them low, get them smoking all night, and then in the morning we'd be able to wrap them before we got on the course, and then we could finish them off that way.
Just leave them right in the smoker.
Right, and turn it down to 210. And so
everybody's hanging out about 12:20.
12 o'clock exactly, the sprinklers come on.
The sprinklers came on.
And that was right in front of us. And everyone's running around, and the one cat from Latitude went over and like he was like kicking it with his foot. So I hurry up. I still hadn't put out my fold up table. I quick folded out the legs and I brought it up and put it in front of it and acted like a barricade.
And these are like golf course sprinklers. How far away was that sprinkler that was getting us?
Man.
Oh shoot! It was a good 40 feet. Like it was
big. It was big.
Yeah.
And it was hitting, it was hitting the smoker. We had the smoker right there on the edge of the concrete underneath the balcony there. And
right.
So
got that covered.
We got that covered, and then I eventually went upstairs. And when I for what reason, I don't know, I came back out and I wanted to look, make sure everything was cool. And I looked down and the smoker's off. There's no power to it.
Because in the meantime, I come up. Well, we all kind of dispersed, really.
Yeah. The sprinkler's kind of like
it kind of changed
set the
things.
tone.
Yeah, and so I went up and started. I was like, I'm going to bed. So I started, and my bed is right there in the room that everyone's going in and out of. And we had some lights on and shit in there. And I was like, well, I'm going to turn these lights out. So I flipped the wall switch, turned the lights out. Not knowing that it was a switched outlet that went to the smoker.
Right.
So that's when you were like going back and forth and you were like going back out to check on it.
Yeah.
And like, what the hell? The smoker's off. What did you do? I was like, well, I just turned the lights off. So then it was kind of like Christmas Vacation, like turn it on. We got power. I turn it back off. No, now we don't. It's off. So figure that out. I'm like, oh shit. So I'm going to have to, I turn the switch. Now Frank's like, just don't touch anything else. So in the meantime, that's when you went down.
I'm sitting down there. I had to restart the smoker and everything, I had to go through the start mode again. So me and Ernie are sitting down there and I'm sitting there looking at I'm in the grass.
Yeah, because you got in the chair and moved it out.
I took chair because the other sprinklers went off. Yeah. They went off at 12:20. And I just happened to mention to Aaron too. I said, it's weird that other zone didn't come on, Yeah, I know, and he's sitting up on the concrete. I'm sitting right in front of the smoker watching the digital readout, and it gets to where it starts, and I set the temp and the smoke and everything, and got that all going. And within 30 seconds after I got everything done, I hear this noise, and it's just like, and I turn and look to my right where the noise is coming from, and this goddamn sprinkler jumps up and hits me right square in the face. Right in the beak. This sumbitch hits me. You couldn't have. I looked, and the water was already halfway to me, but it hit me right directly in the schnoz. It was just unbelievable. I said, how in the hell did that shit happen?
What are the odds that it's...
And Ernie was pissing his pants, and
doesn't it like make it hard for you to even get up out of the chair?
He almost knocked me out of the chair, man. It was like I was going backwards, This son of a bitch hit me right in the face, In
the meantime, Ernie's about pissing his pants, but then he's still got to run out and grab the table from the middle of the
back.
Put the barricade up.
It was unreal. What was the odds, though? I heard it and I just looked, and it was like halfway to me. It was on a line.
So he walks up and he tells Dudley this, and Dudley's like, "What?" So then when we walk up and we see Dudley and he's gonna fix John's release, he's like, "Hey, this guy got hit in the face with the smoker or with the sprinkler," and then like. Ernie said they were sitting there and some random guy just walked by and they're like, "Hey, that's the guy that got hit in the face with the sprinkler."
Yeah, he did. He was walking down the sidewalk, Yeah, that's the dude right there, Jesus Christ.
So we're, as we do, making memories. But
I have a question though. Excuse me. Out of all the courses that we did,
mm-hmm.
How many arrows do you think are still out there in that woods?
Gee, I couldn't even imagine the amount of like lost arrows,
Well, how about that one, Adam?
broken arrows.
Where they shot that out and we're all going into the tree there.
The armadillo.
The
Yeah,
armadillo.
the armadillo.
Well, that's the picture you posted on.
I posted that picture, and there's, I don't know, a dozen or so arrows right there. But, I mean, like that last shot on the prime, like those arrows aren't stuck in trees, but you go and you look at all the inserts that are still in there, all the field points that are still in there. But, like, underneath that tree
was
just like
littered.
pieces of arrows just everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Or like the trees that look like porcupines going down to like the cinnamon bear shot. Remember?
Mhm.
That's where we got backed up on that range.
Well, that one was like a son of a bitch because you shot down into this gully, but there was a bunch of like deadfall, and then they felled a whole bunch of trees. So like just to get to retrieve your arrow
Was a pain.
it was like there was no good way to get down there.
And then the way, so a lot of the arrows, what it was is there was one tree is a downhill shot, and it was like 50 some yards, I think, 54. And about 2/3 of the way down, there was that like Y tree.
Mhm.
And so it was like right at the arc of your arrow.
Mm.
So guys that were shooting like a slower bow had to really raise up. I think that's who got in trouble the most, because about 20 feet up in that tree was a whole litter of arrows. I mean, it was gnarly looking.
Well, that brings up a good point. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you. I mean, and this is no bullshit. Like, we're going to have to do a podcast just with you. And we'll have to make sure that we do like a video podcast, because there's guys that want to know about like arrows, like how to build arrows, like building arrows, and then like the differences in arrows for like, you know, building the heavier arrow, you know, weight forward, weight on the back, what it does with paper tuning, and then like target arrows and, you know, larger diameter, micro diameter arrows. But it brings up this point, like that shot right there. I saw on Instagram, like that Brandon McDonald Archery, he posted a picture where I don't know if it was like a reel or if it was just like
The
clickbait.
346
Yeah.
per second. I believe that's real, but I also believe that's very unsafe, because IBO rating is 5 grains per
pound.
And he's talking, his arrow weight was at 375.
Yeah. For an 80-pound bow.
So that's like 4.6 grains,
Right.
which that's like dry firing your bow,
Yeah.
Well,
especially with 80-pound limbs.
But I don't want to get like necessarily into the controversy of that so much, because I mean, I don't know what those Super 3D arrows you were shooting or whatever, because when you were shooting those suckers, that sounded like your bow was
Exactly. They were right on the edge. That was like 5 grains per inch, or 5 grains per pound.
So anyways, but one of the comments in there said that it probably wouldn't be a good arrow for Total Archery Challenge because they like to play that arc. So a lot of the like laser beam type stuff, like on that prime shot, you know, that may be why my arrow, like I was shooting for the ass of it, but may have hit those limbs where Chris's just kind of went.
Right.
Right
And that's
over.
how I played it too, is I knew that my arrow was going to arc in a little bit.
Because you aimed right at the limb.
I aimed right at the limb, knowing that if I just, you know, even if I was a little up on it, just like on the second shot on the locals course, remember they had that big dead log,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm aiming right at where everyone else hit.
Right.
I'm aiming at that on that log, knowing that my arrow's arcing in.
Yep.
And that's the only way I was going to hit into that like kill zone.
So for guys that have never done like a total archery challenge and they're thinking about maybe doing it for next year, and they're like saying, okay, well, or maybe they're going to the one in Vermont or the one, you know, one of the ones that's still out there. And they say, oh, well, I want to build myself a set of arrows for the Total Archery Challenge. Like, would you build like your same hunting setup? Would you change your tape? What do you think it takes for?
So for me, I mean, it's a little bit different for me because I'm shooting 31-inch draw length, 70 pounds, and I don't have too much problem with speed. My arrows, I'm using my hunting arrows. I didn't build any special anything. It's just my hunting rig. I go with a little bit smaller vane. I'm using the PM23s or whatever instead. I will go back to the Max Stealth 3-inch for hunting, especially with fixed blade, because I think that was one of the issues I had last year too. Was I went with just the small vanes trying to shoot a fixed blade. Not worth it. But so I would build an arrow as heavy duty as I can, because like I smacked those two trees and I went through them and I didn't, screw up the arrow. I did screw up the one where it hit the re-rod but
I only had one that we didn't really go look for it because we knew it was
right.
There was two.
Or two.
There was a couple.
But
there was the one on the Nock On course that hit that tree.
I hit some trees, so
yeah, dead on.
Whatever,
out.
and bounced out.
But you're also only shooting 60 pounds.
52.
Yeah, 54.
Okay, 54. So guys, like Adam shot those same arrows 2 years ago, and you broke a lot on
all of them.
Yeah, basically went through all of them because they weren't as sturdy and they didn't hold up.
Yeah. So, but like I got really lucky because when my arrows right now that are carrying that much momentum hit stuff, I usually break them like violently. But I did take a mulligan on this shot. I think I got the high score or whatever from the last one. So I go up to the thing. Ernie, what's the range? 62. I pull back. It comes up about 20 yards short and hits this
dead
branch.
Dead
and
log.
I think the only reason that it didn't break the arrow or anything is like it was this branch that came up and it moved with the thing, because I went up there and I was able to get it out. It didn't harm the arrow or anything. But I didn't adjust my tape. I just put it right on there and shot it for about 25 yards shy. But that was one of my questions because like, I forget who it was that we were talking to. TJ, when we were shooting TJ, he said he went and just got the cheapest set of arrows he could get that were the right spine from Lancaster.
Yeah.
And built those. But so you don't necessarily see any benefit in building because so the arrows that I built were built for the tape that I had for my hunting arrows, but like those inserts are $3 a piece.
Right.
That wasn't prudent on my part to just shoot them into oblivion.
Right. If you're just going to go out there and plan on, missing a bunch, but I built the whole dozen arrows, but like I said, I ended up basically with 3.
But so I'm just thinking like maybe a better question for you then. For your average guy that goes and buys your arrows off the shelf or whatever, you're not into, doing all this stuff and you're confused about like, should I build the heavy arrow? Should I build one that flies at 278 or 289?
I guess if you're just going up and want to have fun and don't give a shit and you're going to do all the crazy little shots, then I guess I would do kind of like what TJ did then. Buy an arrow that's the same, comparable weight, everything, spine, and but cheaper, because then you're not going to worry about wrecking your, like with you, well, that's what he said. TJ last year, he went up there with his, heavy FOC, his hunting arrows with basically they're $30 a piece. Well, that doesn't make much sense. If you go out and, break 4 or 5 arrows, that's more than a dozen if you just go buy the cheap ones.
Right.
As long as they shoot good out of your bow, because you still want to go up and,
It's really weird though. You look at everybody's shooting blazer vanes, little fletch and everything. Them fletches that I got on my arrows with that little bit of helical to them, Those arrows fly really good, man.
They fly great. So what the hell is it?
It's the guy that's shooting them, dude. You guys know that.
Yeah, that one was sweet. Like I was standing right behind you, and it was like that. It was a long shot, so it kind of went up and over.
Yeah.
And I'm standing right behind Frank, and I just watched that arrow. Just looked like a what I call it, the
orange
creamsicle.
Yeah,
golf ball.
I think that's the guy that built your bow, right? Got a good arrow flight, and What? So this year you did shoot a bunch for the truck to no avail. I think next year I'm going to build some arrows and because my bow with a regular arrow,
you should be able to easily.
And I wondered, now that we have said it, and I have no idea like where they would go, but if we were joking around, if we had just flipped it to the performance cam, because my sight goes to like 105, and then there's still some room down there. So
with clearance, you still had clearance.
I had plenty of clearance, yeah.
So that's the thing, like
it was just bottomed out.
It was bottom?
Yeah, bottomed out past 105. So, but I think it would be fun, like to shoot at. And I think like the last 2 years, at least the 2 years ago, like I was shooting really good at long distances because I feel like they were bigger targets like that. So Dudley posted a picture, or he backed up that armadillo and shot that armadillo for 93. One of his last shots, it was like, I thought it was 70. He said 65. Was it?
I thought it was like 70 also.
Yeah.
Like 75 or 72 or something.
Yeah. But it was an armadillo, like the size of like a basketball.
That was the second to the last target.
Yeah. And
I saw that from where I was laying in the grass over there.
Yeah. We all hit it.
We all hit it.
Yeah.
And that was a fun one, but like I feel like in years past, like at the bigger targets, it was no big deal because you're just like, oh, just put it anywhere on there. We'll get foam and it'll be fine.
Right.
The closer ones are the ones that were more realistic. And there was a lot of them this year that were like the small deer and like the 1/3 elk.
Well, we've seen the armadillo like 5 times. I've never seen it before.
But I think on that long shot, it was just so small that you only had so much to focus on. So
that's a poke.
It was a poke. But like I said, I was shooting pretty well like 2 years ago. Like you're like, well, you should shoot for the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I 12'd that elk or whatever it was at 90. But I've never had like I've never had a spot to shoot and shot at that distance. And I didn't want to pay money just to kind of find the range,
Right.
Because really at that distance, I mean, we watched some really good shooters shooting above it and below it and over here and over there. And it's like, was that me? Was that the bow? Was it, where am I supposed to hold?
Man, if I would have like looked at those arrows, my last 6, it was literally like they were all in a row, like 6 inches low.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I would have just gave it a couple of clicks, I would have been more in the range. But my closest was like an inch and a half outside the 12.
That was like that was like everybody's first shot on that second volley, right? Because that one went and it was like, oh
yeah. I'm like, fuck, that looks close.
But even you and that one dude on the first set, like you guys had 2 of them that were real close, and his was in, and yours was
mine was. But that was his 5th set of 11.
Yeah, and it was $150 for 11 shots, or $15 a piece.
So he was sitting at $750, and he wasn't done yet.
But Frank, we talked about it, right? So they said Chris B was there shooting when John was shooting, and he was saying they think there's going to be 100 entries this year. There was like 48 last year or something. Mm-hmm. He said they think there's going to be 100. So, John, you said you did the math on that truck, right? It was
So if they had 60 grand into just the truck, which I don't know how the truck's donated or whatever they do it. So
but if you could buy a raffle ticket for $1,000, 1 in 100 to win a $60,000 truck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even if you said, oh, okay, well, it's a $500 buy-in or whatever, you would consider it, right?
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah. Well, I think it got to the point with him, and he was like, because he was shooting the day before with Travis, and Travis put 4 in.
So Travis Johnson, who has won the truck before, and we had him on the podcast talking about target archery and shooting and all that. He was up there,
and he was on fire over the winter leagues. Like he was shooting 300s left and right.
Yep, he shot. I don't know. It was like consecutive 300s indoors.
Right. And so we ran into him, and he had already had 2 in there, and that's when that guy was like shooting, and he was like, "Yeah, I was listening to Travis, and he was telling me, he was telling, okay, aim right here," and so I just kept, buying tickets. And he finally got one in on the 5th set.
But that's what made me think about like the arrow thing and everything, because I guess we can talk about that just a little bit. We're, I kind of covered a bunch of the stuff that we're going to cover, but like for that specific shot, it has to be inside out. So if you were going to build a set of arrows, like I'm saying, if I want to shoot arrows for that, I'd be way better off shooting a micro diameter arrow.
Smaller arrow, yeah.
So that there's a chance that if I'm that close, it won't be cutting the line, and it will be inside out. Now,
if you wanted to build like I'm not sure. I didn't see what Travis was shooting, but like Chris B is shooting like Pro Tours.
I don't know what those are.
Those are like $400 a dozen. Those are target arrow.
But are they big?
No, they're a smaller diameter. They're probably closer to like an axis, like what I'm shooting, but they're a tapered shaft. They're for shooting like field archery. I mean, but super straight. They're tapered. Oh, you'd have to. I mean,
the opposite of a grizzly stick, like small fronts, like darts.
Yeah.
So, did he get any in?
I don't know. He had just started shooting it when I got done, and then we left. We had a knock time. So I didn't see on there if he did or not.
Yeah, Travis was shooting some strange looking arrows, like little tiny fletchings.
So probably more like the field archery.
Now, why would they do that? If you're shooting that long, why would you want just for less drag, so you have like a flatter shooting arrow, or like?
I think less wind drift. I don't know, you not catch it as much. Because if you look at like field archery, or like I'm trying to think of when they're shooting like the 70 meters with recurves and stuff. Look at those. They have like tiny ass little veins. Of course, they're going over the riser of the bow, but yeah, those guys that are shooting like the 70 and 90 meter or whatever, 50 meter.
Yeah, because his veins were way smaller than the ones you're shooting.
Right. And those guys are shooting, outdoor. Maybe it's outdoor world archery or whatever. But those guys are shooting long distance, and then they have to deal with wind and everything. So, and they're trying to put it in that friggin', 10 ring, and they're shooting, I don't know how many arrows, but yeah, all those guys are shooting small veins. So they're getting their bows tuned to the point where they don't really need, and you're not shooting a broadhead. This is just target. So you got the field tip, and you get your bow tuned, you get your arrow shaft tuned to fly good, and then you're more consistent.
Okay. So what do you think we need to do differently next year? What should we do differently next year?
For one, I'm going to be in better shape because I felt like shit that first day.
Yeah.
Real shit. Which kind of set the tone for the rest of it. So I was doing great. Like all winter long, I was sitting there working out, trying to watch my eating and all that. And then like right before we went to Florida, I started having a little bit of hip pain. So I was like, I was going to take a little time off. We're going to Florida in a few days. I got home from Florida and I haven't even touched a weight until now.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. But I could definitely tell a difference. And plus, here, I'm going to Montana. I might not be carrying a bow, but I'm going to be out there hiking the mountains just like I did last year. And so I need to get my ass in the groove. So that, for sure, I'm going to try to be in better shape physically, mentally, and I'm not going to be dicking around with a bow right before or a release. I'm going to be, like I said, I've been busy since I got back from Florida doing other shit. So like getting home late, not having time to shoot. Like the last week or whatever, since we got the bows, and I don't know, it took me a week or so to get it set up, but I was trying to at least get 3 good arrows or 3 arrows a night. I was telling Frank, even if it's just one set, I at least got some arrows through the bow, trying to get the muscles. Because that's another thing too, is like when you're not shooting every day and you go out there and hike a mountain and get all fatigued, and then you try to hold your bow. I mean, and I was dealing with that big time on that Nock On course.
There was a couple shots there that I waited for all you guys to shoot,
just to get a little extra.
To get a little bit extra wind,
Right. And see, I have a hard time with that. I like getting up there. I like being the first one to shoot, just like,
Yeah.
I like to be the first to the target, check it out, and even if I'm not supposed to be the first one shooting.
I like it when John's the first shooter because he's got these big, bright green fletchings, and it usually gives you something to shoot at.
Yeah. You did smack one of them. That's what happened to that other arrow. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That was down the side of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of the most, I don't think it was that target, but it made me think of it because it was right near that. They had like the most funky target. I don't know how far the shot was. I don't think it was very long. I think it was like 40 yards or something, but it was the prairie dog family target.
Yes.
And it was like, where in the hell do you even aim at this thing? And there's all these little tiny, and John smoked it, but like the 12 was like the size of like the end of your pinky.
Yeah.
And then there was like a ring that was a normal 12 size ring, but that would have been the 10 ring. And it was just a funky target for a 40-yard uphill tree behind.
Yeah, I think, Frank, you got the log on that one, didn't you?
I did. I logged that one.
You got the arrow back.
I logged in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it bounced back, didn't it?
No, it bounced over. It skipped off and went up. And
that's right.
That one stuck in it.
Oh, that's right.
That one was like dead center in that big dead log across behind it.
Yeah.
But we got her back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I had to unscrew it. Yeah. Yep. But I did a lot of unscrewing for Chris.
I think if I really take it serious like next year, that I'm going to go with a totally different setup, sight wise and stuff.
Right.
Something that I can legitimately shoot, to infinity and beyond.
So you need like one of our HHA.
Well, I would say that just a single pin HHA, like.
But you want a wheel though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like the optimizer.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the 4 pins, obviously, because I used 2 with my pins.
And to be honest with you, like, I know, like, the biggest hang up with most or all of those wheel ones is the price. I mean, I don't think you can touch one for less than like $300. But because they have that algorithm, you shoot 20, you shoot 60, and you're going to be, as long as you can shoot, the bow will be in the target. Like, you might not be in the 12 ring, but you're going to be within, a handful of yards.
As long as you give it a little time and you don't do it like 2 hours before we leave it.
Right.
Well, but I don't even,
because we were trying to shave percentages off for Chris because he was like, because you could see it. So it might be okay on the lower yardage, 20 to 40. But as you start getting out into the 50, 60, 70, now that curve, the exponential curve, whatever, is really catching up.
Right.
So that's where you're seeing it like, oh, when I'm at 70, I got to put it on 82. Or
all right. Yeah. So to curb that, and we've talked about this before, but just real quickly, like, so you shoot 20 and you shoot 60. And then what do you do for
to finalize it?
Because you say you go out to 80, but how do you do that? Do you do that on the actual sight in tape, or?
So like, okay, when I got home, what I do, like, so I used to do like on my Axit, my Excel. That one is a straight tape, so there's no 24 or 20 and 60 and pick your number. It's just old school. You sighted it at 20 and then you sighted it at 80, and then that's where I use my calipers, right? And then I just go through, and it might take me, a few tries.
And if you didn't have calipers, you could just draw a line on another straight edge or something. You just need to measure it.
Yeah, you just need to measure it.
And being straight, it's not like curved, so you'd still be good.
But you can still do that with a wheel. So like when we got back, I was dicking around my bow. And because remember I said I was like 2 yards off, give or take.
And that's what cost him the truck.
Right.
So you know.
And so what I did was I went back, shot my 20, zeroed it, made sure that was good. Walked back, shot 40, made sure that was good. Then I walked all the way back to 100. And then I just shot I ended up emptied my quiver. And then I went up and I looked at all my arrows, and I was consistently low. So then I just dialed it again, went back, shot my whole quiver again. And that was 10 arrows. And then my line was much, it was right in line on that. My orange bag's got an orange and black. So what I did then was I brought it back down, took that wheel off. But first of all, I locked it at 20. I turned it back down to 20, locked it in, took that wheel off. Then I took that tape off. I put it back down on the tape, took my calipers out, and I knew it was actually measuring 95. So it was 20 and 95. Put it on there, took my calipers, found out, and it was I was 4 numbers off. So.
Yeah, so the further you go out, the more accurate you're going to be on that.
Exactly.
But that's why, like I say, it'll get you in the hand.
It'll get you close. I mean, especially for shoot. I mean, if you're shooting out to only 50, it's.
Yeah, but like I say, for Frank, we're.
Most times I don't even notice. It's just when you start really shooting a lot of long distance like that, and what I say, I'm consistently low.
Well, and that's what I said. So I didn't shoot my bow a ton before we went out there, but I was good at 60, maybe just a hair low, but at 80, 84, I was about 8 inches low. And so I knew that the further I got out there, I was going to have to add a couple of yards.
See, and that's the thing that's, I don't want to do. I want to be able to say, okay, run it to 82 or 84.
And know that's where it's
going to go.
If you're on, it's where it's going to. And that's the thing, though. It's you better get out there and
Oh, yeah.
work on that.
and do the shooting.
But I'm going to have a different site next year.
For hunting or for?
No. My hunting site's right in my garage right now.
So why don't we, I mean, it sounds like we need to just set you up a Total Archery Challenge bow, like his Helium that he still has. You know, then you won't have to be going back and forth and back and forth. You won't have to worry about, and you could, kind of like what we were talking about with the, kind of like the arrows, we could find you a set of arrows because you're going to be limited. I mean, I don't know, maybe you know the math or something, but at 52 yards, I mean, he's going to run into clearance issues.
52 pounds.
Yeah, 52 pounds. So maybe he needs a smaller veined arrow.
Oh, yeah.
Than the big ones that he's shooting. He's going to have, so that we get,
sure have to
get
do some
more
stuff to get some more clearance.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, it's going to be all well and good, except for you're only going to be able to shoot to 75 yards like Chris's bow, and then you're going to still be, you're either going to have to be the guy that walks up to the women's tees.
I crank the poundage up. You know, if I'm not trying to hunt with it or something like that, you know, and shooting it all the time, but I mean, I can shoot 70, you know.
Well, but you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you got that bow that's just sitting there,
right?
If you want one to stretch it out, I mean, that would seem a little bit more prudent than, you know. I mean,
right.
I'd be nervous about you, just given the circumstances right now, that your bow is going to sit there, and then it's going to be September 18th, and you're going to be like, well, no, you're going out west. So
I'm going to be out west.
It's going to be August 15th. And he's like, I got to put that hunt site back on there. Like, we got to load up the trailer. You know, Chris lost half your arrows. You broke a bunch of them.
Yeah, I'll get them checked out.
But
I do have to change my Fletcher, though. Because I changed it for him, and I got to change it back.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess if you're within a few hours of driving distance or something like that, or something, I would definitely check it out. And I know that I've said this on here before.
Just don't try to take our condo.
Yeah, well,
and here's the thing too. You didn't say nothing about that pork. How was the pork?
That's the first time that I've ever done pork where when I brought it upstairs to pull it, I took the aluminum foil off of it and it was like Jell-O. It was like completely fluid. And I ended up just scooping it out with a slotted, like it was like like a pasta spoon, like one that had like the
little
fingers on it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to, there was a lot of juice and a lot of fat. So I just ended up scooping it out of there. And John's like, did you pull it? I'm like, I didn't have to pull it. I just had to I couldn't get it out of there.
How'd the bones come out though?
Well, that was just clean. But it was like Jell-O. Like when I touched it, it was just like
so it was like a combined effort because you did the rub.
Yeah.
So you did like your rub deal, which I don't do any wet ingredients in the rub. I usually just, whatever dry rub I got, I just paste it. I cut the cap, trim the cap down a little bit, dry rub it, throw it on there.
Well, I told him since we were going to be doing it that long, just to leave the fat on there, and we put the fat on the top because I didn't want it to dry out.
Did you put it on the top?
One of them was on the top, one of it was on the bottom.
Let's see, because really that don't matter. So actually, like they always say, put the fat on the bottom.
But they both come out great,
right?
Either way. And I used that rub that I got, you know, and then I use some mustard on there, you know, to hold the rub,
make it adhere, yeah.
And so then so like on my smoker or on my grill, the Traeger, it's either smoke or super smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's good from 165 to 225. So depending on, like, I like to do it like the lower end so you get more smoke.
Well, what'd we do the temperature on that?
So
we started it, I think, at
220,
250, and then when we got up in the morning, it was like 156, and then we wrapped it and put some pineapple juice and apple juice in there, and then we put it at 210
because that's I'm like, we're going to be gone all day, so let's set it to the point where even if it gets done before we get there, it's only at 210 instead of,
instead of 250.
Before you guys wrapped them, I looked at those, and man, I'm telling you what, them were pretty. They were good looking. We could have won the
Pretty Pork Award.
Yeah. But then we did the ribs too. We did venison ribs. Ernie brought a bunch of them up, and we did them in the roaster, and then threw them on the grill.
And that's one thing. Like, first of all, we did 2 deers worth of ribs, and they were 2 pretty good sized deer, and there was a pile of ribs. There were so many. I was like, there's no way we're going to eat even close to these. And we had some left over the next day, and then I think we had maybe 4 little pieces of the racks left at the end. But I mean, people were just mowing them down.
So Chris and I, so the next day we grilled burgers. But so when we got done with our first course, we all had warmed up pulled pork sandwiches.
Right.
Well, then we got back for dinner, we grilled burgers, and me and Chris were like, get out that pork. So we had cheeseburger with pork on top.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
And then
the only thing that was missing was some spicy pickles.
We put those leftover ribs. So if you do venison ribs, the one downfall or the mitigating factor is the fat and the tallow is like eating a candle.
Yeah.
So if you don't cook them in the roaster and then get rid of all that fat, or if you don't reheat them properly the second time, and Chris said they're good for about 2 days. You eat them for 3 days, just warming them up in the microwave or the oven. They just get really waxy. So you kind of have to be one and done.
Yeah, but you have to eat them hot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but
those guys trimmed a lot off too. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of trim.
Well,
but
when Chris and I do them, when we break the deer down, we take all that off, as much as we can, on the animal.
Yeah.
And I think Ernie was just oh yeah, ribs, with the Sawzall.
Well, yeah.
So.
But the first time we did them a couple years ago there, I made sure we shaved, get that stuff off them. And man, I'll tell you what, they were damn good.
Yeah, I think
I think we should have put them in the roaster.
Oh, the night before.
Or at least before we went up the hill.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Then because low and slow, just like with the pork.
Well, because the ones we did in the crock pots here, remember? They were the bones were like big white teeth on the ends,
Yeah.
They
were just a little tough. We cooked them a little fast, and, but when Frank said, he goes, did anybody say anything about them being tough? And I said, everybody that tried them just said this. I mean, they just gobbled them up. I mean, they were good. They tasted just fine, but I feel like anytime you do anything like that, the pork turned out perfect. The the ribs, usually even at home, when I cook a brisket or I cook ribs or something, I have in my mind exactly how I want it to come out, and rarely do I hit that mark, and everybody's oh, those are really good, and you're well, they're not, they're not what I was thinking.
The pork though,
that hit the mark. That
walleye was great too, though.
That walleye was great.
Yeah, that was the you could tell the difference. So I had some stuff that was from last year, and that was the stuff because that's it. I've said it before. When you vacuum seal, it's still good. It's still got great flavor, but it has a different texture. It's almost like a not rubbery, but a firmer texture to it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one I did with the regular just Everglades seasoning. And then the blackened was all the fresh stuff
the new stuff
that we got, the spring mount.
Mm-hmm.
But and then the Walleye Cheeks. Normally, like when I did those Walleye Cheeks, I was super surprised. Like, damn, those are like little freaking
like filet mignon of fish.
I mean,
little scallops almost.
Yeah, because like if you deep fry them, they get a little chewy.
Yeah.
And that's why we started doing like the cheek chowder, because you can get all these cheeks and it's a good way to eat them. And then they are super tender in that. You put those in first when you're cooking it down, and it cooks them down and they get super tender. Well, I was going to do the cheek chowder up there and then put in those, last year's fillets, because that still was really good. But it was just so hot, and it was like, it just wasn't chowder weather, really.
Right.
So I'm like,
sprinkler weather, but not chowder weather.
So I'm like, I'm just going to, throw it all on the Blackstone, and man, them cheeks, I pulled them off. I was like, holy shit. They were good. I like those.
Yeah, it didn't last long.
Yeah. So next year, I think we need to and it's always on me, everything. Like, we need to plan better just for that. Like, going to be at this time, maybe shoot earlier, do something, or shoot like way late the next day, and just be like, so. But because we left on Sunday, like that puts a strain on things, because you have to get up and take care of all the shit and all that stuff. But I think we stayed in a different condo this year, and it was way more expensive. And I think that's why we didn't do Monday. So it was like,
because also 2 years ago, I mean, there's only a couple of us that stayed on Sunday night, wasn't there?
Yeah, but we had the condo. We didn't.
We had it, right?
We didn't have to check out at 10 o'clock.
Chris and Ernie and I stayed.
We had to come back
because it was his birthday, and we went into town. And remember, we went to the Red Mesa.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ernie and Chris and I did, and we stayed the next day.
Yeah. So that needs to be part of the thing, just for.
Yeah, because that really screwed up Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, we had to get everything loaded and everything.
We didn't even eat breakfast.
Didn't get no breakfast,
Everything
load everything up.
Back, then you got to drive home all freaking hot and dirty.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because we could not have all the fun that we have and bring all the stuff and have the tables and have and just be like, oh, well, we're just going to hang out in the room and go up to the bar and hang out. Or we can say, all right,
that's the guy the sprinkler hit,
we'd be talking about somebody else on the podcast. But, we go up there kind of.
I felt like we were kind of actually antisocial, because we just stayed at the condo the whole time. We didn't even go up to the bar area or the whatever they had going on up there. I heard music.
Yeah, that was on Friday. Yeah, they had the Black Rifle they had some raffles, like where if you bought one of their grenade cups, you got entered into one of their raffles. But yeah, I think, if you guys get a chance, and there's a lot of the guys that were in like the Marco Polo group for the Patreon saying like, oh, I want to come up there. And I mean, I think we should really have like a meetup like up there. Like, and that's what I was going to say. So like, if you have like one within like, say 4 hours of where you're at, and you've got some time, like even if you don't go shoot the course, like you can go up there, you can shoot for the truck. There's other, like Bear Archery had some things where you could shoot for their bows. Cafaro had a Iron Rhino. You can just go walk on and shoot the practice course. You can shoot out to 80 yards. Sometimes they have 100 yards.
Plus they have a whole bunch of, like you said, the Cafaro was there, Latitudes were there, Tethrd was there,
Mystery Ranch, Black Rifle Coffee, Nock On. You could meet Dudley.
Yep. Furlough.
Yeah, PSE, Prime.
Yep. Well, Prime better be there since they're
one of the courses. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of vendors. Yeti was there, Sitka. There's just it's just a really cool event. Yeah, so I mean, for us, especially being in the Midwest, like where you can't check out like a lot of the packs or the any of the
crispy boots
outdoor gear. And like we didn't really. I mean, we went up and hung out in the Tethrd booth and the Latitudes guys. Went and checked them out. I talked to the furlough people. I went to one of the local shops and got myself some field points. But it's just a really cool like event. If you're listening to this podcast, you'd enjoy yourself out there,
for sure.
So get your ass out to one.
Yeah. So definitely check that out. And, I kind of think that's all we got. You got anything else, John, about the whole thing?
Public service announcement. Always check your arrows, because after slapping a tree or missing a target or slapping arrows with someone else, whatever, look at your arrows.
Ernie shot that one that was...
Right, which I didn't, you guys went up and pulled them. And you know me, I always sit there and spin it even after, and like I was kind of doubtful of that one that you slapped. The knock was a little loose. I just put it away and I'm like, well, I'll check it out later. So one of the friend of the family, Lucas, was up. He came up on Sunday, right? And I didn't get to talk to him, but he seen me shooting or whatever, and he's like, hey, I was going to say hi. He messaged me. He's like, but we had to get on their lift, or they had to get on the shuttle. They went and shot Sitka. So I messaged him yesterday. I'm like, hey, I said, how'd it go? Did you have fun? He's like, yeah, it was like a last minute thing. My buddy talked me into going. We shot Sitka. I was having a little issue with my rest first, off the bat, but then Station 22 had an arrow blow up in my bow and tweaked the bow, so he was done at that point. I'm like, man. And that's how I was like, I guarantee you, he probably slapped a tree or missed and hit a rock or someone else hit it. Yeah. Especially on Sitka, it's a longer course, and I'm like, dude, always check your arrows. You're lucky, you could have. There's guys that have, can't even shoot with that hand anymore. I think John Dudley was talked about it, where the dude had such bad nerve damage, he had to end up switching hands, went from a right-handed bow to a left. I know a guy that I went to school with did it with it. He knew the arrow was busted. He was going to launch it out, and this was the old fiberglass, and that thing exploded and went into his hand, and he still has a huge scar where it went like almost all the way through and just tore it up. So always check your arrows.
Safety first.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. That's all we got for this evening.